Hello and welcome to EPR with your favorite environmental enthusiasts, Nic and Laura. On today's episode, Laura and I talk about video games. We also talk to Dr. Tun Myint about democracy, volunteering, and brewing. And finally, Super Mario is a much darker game than you think. Remember all those blocks you destroyed as a kid, or maybe even as a young adult, or maybe even as just an adult? Yeah, they were the inhabitants of the Mushroom Kingdom turned into blocks by Koopas. Ugh. If you want to feel slightly better, some say that it's actually all of the power-ups are the toads and all the other blocks are empty. But the fact that it's even slightly unclear is deeply unsettling. So there you go. Now that I've ruined your childhoods, let's go ahead and hit that music.
NAEP will be hosting the Advanced NEPA training virtually on September 27th from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Alaska time. This workshop will benefit those professionals who work in related natural resource disciplines, who work with federal land management or real estate transactions, federal agency projects or permitting, and transportation or other infrastructure projects with a NEPA review component. Check it out at www.naep.org. And we have no sponsor today, so that means you're up, Nick. 30 seconds.
Oh, God.
Make something up.
Oh, gosh. Okay. This is really, really off the top of my head. Let's see. You know how we have, you're out in the field and you want to just stay out in the field forever. And, maybe you don't have, your facilities nearby, you want to use the bathroom. And it's super inconvenient. Well, we now have, Depends in the woods. And that is, it is actually, it looks like banana leaves because it is. And you just put that on your bottom and you go out there and you keep going. You never stop. You don't do anything except poop all over yourself. And then at the end of the day, you can throw it away. It's biodegradable, super wonderful. Everyone loves it. It's Depends for the woods. Depends.com. Don't forget to.
Please, for the love of God, can somebody sponsor the episode?
Oh my God.
So
there you go.
It's because Nick is a comedian, so we're just practicing those muscles for him.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And that's what I got. That's what I got. Depends. Yeah. I'm gonna see. There's a more clever name out there. Than Depends in the Woods.
Oh my God. Let's get to our segment.
And finally, we need a segment.
What do you want to talk about?
I thought of movies, but we already talked about them. So
movies are always on your mind.
Yeah, kind of.
How about a video game segment part 2? Because I missed the first video game segment.
Oh, that's too funny. Oh, Laura, you don't play video games, do you?
I play the classics like Tetris.
Solitaire? Is that what you're going to tell me?
There was a period, but not anymore. I was playing for a while. It's like a game on my phone, Homescapes.
Nice.
I don't know what that is.
I know it. I know it, but I haven't played it.
It's just repetitive and things flash a lot and whatever. But I haven't been playing that for a while. But I did for a little bit. That was like my go-to for just sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like game consoles and things, no, I don't have. I think we have Xbox in house.
You think you have an Xbox?
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
Can you even guess at what they're called? Like, it's Xbox something.
It's an Xbox One, I think.
Hey, that's right. Hey, that is one. That's like an old one, but although honestly, I'm not even sure what the new one's called anymore.
I think my favorite was the Wii, though.
Yeah, that was pretty popular. Everyone really liked that. Mm-hmm. I mean, we didn't have one.
I would still get a Wii just to do the exercise things.
Yeah.
The Wii Fit and like my skin's crawling. I'm like, why would you do that when you could play the games? Zelda, come on.
You guys playing? I know Sam's playing stuff.
Oh, Sam plays the same game.
I do play the same game, especially now. I like to say that we're in a bit of a gaming depression, even though there's so many games coming out, but they're not what I like to play.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of like single player apocalypse type games. There's a lot of that going on.
Shooter looters. I don't play that. A
ton of those. Oh my gosh.
I don't play those.
Yeah. I play them very poorly. So
I don't see I see the appeal, but it just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, it's actually, I'm in like the twilight of my gaming career is what I like to call it, because I am now officially slower than I was when I was in my 20s. And like, I can really tell. I'm like, well, isn't that neat over dead? You know, like that's kind of what's happening to me. And same thing with fighting games. Like I used to love fighting games when I was a kid. I just cannot, I'm not quick enough anymore to be good. And so it's weird. It's like a sad little,
that's sad.
yeah. So now I just started playing like Monopoly Go on my phone. It makes me feel good because there's no skill required. Oh, yeah. But it is strange. Like as I get older, I like those like puzzle type games much more than like, or like a Zelda, right? I like that a lot more because it's not quite as, you're not comparing your skill level to others. You're just out there, having a good time at your own pace, and you can do things like I'm going to build a house instead of trying to kill everything. Whatever it is, you can kind of do your own thing, and I like that more as I get older. So just warning you now, Sam. It'll happen.
She's got time.
Yeah, you have time.
Wow, that's hurtful. That's
although Peter is in his early 30s and he still plays fighting games, and he's doing well. He enjoys
his late 30s. That's what I'm saying.
Late 30s? Okay, I'll let him know.
Yeah.
Like, enjoy your time now because it's coming.
It's coming. And like you'll notice it like in small ways. Like it's very funny. Like it's just like with shooters in particular, it's like your reaction time's just a little bit slower. It just gets a little bit slower. I remember I used to be great at like Halo 2 back in the day. That's a long time ago. But I was very, very good at that. And I have not been as good as at a game since. It just hasn't been the same. And some of it's timing too. Like I just have less time, so I don't play them very much anymore, like I used to. And that's part of it too. But still, like how I figured it out was Mario Party. And, like in Mario Party, there's like different games you play, and so one of them is like pressing as fast as you possibly can. And I used to be like A+ at this. I could do it on the hardest difficulty, whatever it was. I could hit the top, like no problem, just pressing the button as fast as possible. But now I cannot. And so it's like a really clear indication that I'm getting older.
That's too bad.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I'm going to be 40 in like 2 months. In almost 2 months, I'm going to be 40 years old. That's crazy to me. So
how do you feel about that?
We're talking about video games. Okay.
Oh, that's right.
How should I feel, Laura? Come on.
You should feel great. 40s are great.
All right.
So I think 40s are good. You stop caring so much about everything.
That sounds nice. Not caring.
Well, you care about the stuff that's important to you. You care far less about what's not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you care far less about what people think about you and things. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. It's kind of like you're fully formed. You've come into your own. Which is good
if you're a video game player, because then you can keep playing without caring what people think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And then, some of the funniest moments I've had playing games with friends is, just me being terrible at them. And so like we used to do this thing where we would play, is it Apex? And I'm just bad at that game. And that's a game where you have to be on it. And, my friends were making fun of me for, I have ADHD. So it's like, it's the worst game for me to play. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, need a gun, dead, It's cool. It's got green on it. And they're like, why are you looking at the gun? Look at the guys. I'm like, what guys? Use your ears. I have to listen to? Are you kidding me? No, come on.
Oh, good stuff. But let's get to our interview. Welcome back to EPR. Today we have Tun Myint, Chair of Political Science and International Relations and Professor of Political Science at Carleton College on the show. Welcome, Dr. Myint.
Thank you.
So the classes you teach sound really high level. Can you tell us about what you teach and the students that you have in your classes?
I teach all level actually, but I enjoy teaching high level classes because they are most discussion oriented, and also having students who are more advanced in classes are just fun. So I teach global environmental politics, which is a mid-level class, 200 level, meaning from the first year to senior level students can take. And then 2 senior level seminars I teach, both of which are related to environmental issues. One is approaches to development, that is dealing with social change, ecological change. But in that seminar, I focus on social changes. And the other is global social change and sustainability. That's right on into the sustainable climate-related, change-related politics and so on. So that seminar deal with the intro concept development to all the way to advanced theoretical exploration. So students will write their own research paper on the topic they pick. In some cases, I also design non-paper writing assignment. In that term, I would require a student to define sustainability problem and come up with a solution to solve it. And in that solution, they have to produce a prototype product. So it could be a backpack, self-charging backpack, or pedaling under the desk exercise machine while you are charging, working on the computer and things like that. So sort of that kind of definition they have to define and also solve the problem. So that seminar is more fun in some way because Minnesota spring term, the weather is nice. Students are kind of distracted from all outside activity. So therefore, you will have a hard time writing papers. So in that case, I would just assign you have to make something in the lab, like a maker's lab, where machines and tools and everything are provided and so on. So that's an advanced level seminar.
That's very cool. That sounds fun.
That's really cool.
Are all your students in person?
Right now, yes. Since in COVID, we were given choice to do Zoom, hybrid, and then also just face-to-face. And I took face-to-face all the way through.
Wow.
I just don't like Zoom teaching so much. My students, luckily, interestingly, enjoyed my Zoom classes, they said. Okay, so that was the first Zoom class was in 2020, right in the midst of the COVID when it started. We all went into all Zoom. So
yeah.
That's cool. And then, so when did you decide that you wanted to get a PhD and go into the academic route for yourself?
That was not planned. So I had to tell when I decided.
Right.
But I was generally interested in environmental issues because I was born and raised in a small village in northwestern corner of Burma, in the olden day name, or Myanmar in the Southeast Asia. It's on the mainland Southeast Asia. And so I learned early on as a child, all the way to the age of 12, where I lived in the village. The villagers spent a lot of time collecting water, collecting firewood, and hunter-gatherer lifestyle, collecting food from the forest, and also agriculture, planting chili, eggplant, tomatoes, wheat, sesame, corn. So I learned all of those activities through my family life. So I never was able to sort of switch from noticing and also understanding the importance of water issue, especially because water was the most time-consuming activities in my village area because it's also dry zone, which is what is regarded in the region. So in the dry zone, collecting water for animals like cows, horses, and pigs that you have at home, and also for household, it would typically take about 2 to 4 hours for my family to get water from nearest creek or lake, depending on the season. So that issue stuck with me. And so I wanted to understand how people at the national level or even in the global level, they can manage such an important resource like fresh water. So I had that interest. So I did my master's in environmental public affair, but with environmental issues as a primary interest. After I finished my master, I was more interested in big questions like how people solve these infrastructure, pollution, water pollution, all of that. And so I decided to apply for graduate program, PhD program at Indiana University, Bloomington. And luckily, I was accepted by a professor who was also leading the research program at Indiana University. It's called Political Theory and Policy Analysis. Her name is Elena Ostrom. Vincent Ostrom, her husband. So they focus on common pool resources, CPRs, and how collective action problem at the local level contribute to success or failure of larger systems. So that really was my intellectual home where I started my PhD program. And I think partially my interest was in PhD was more of driven by conditions and questions that I was brought along throughout my study. So there was no a neat time frame or a point where I'm going to be. So just to give you a long answer on that one.
Okay, that's great.
No, that's great.
So your master's, was that in Myanmar?
Master was all my degree in bachelor, master, and PhD. All of those are done at Indiana University, Bloomington.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I left Myanmar in 1988, Burma in 1988 after the high school. And I did not have any university level education.
Wow, that's really interesting. So do you work in your home?
Right now, this year, since 2021 military coup, I won't be able to go back. In 1988, I was a high school student in Myanmar, and I was involved in student activism, overthrowing socialist one-party state or one-party government system then. And so after the military coup, I could not stay in Myanmar. So I left Burma in 1988, and then I came to the United States as a political refugee in 1993. And so I started my education at IU from 93 on.
Yeah. And so like and it kind of leads right into my next question. So your work kind of follows a dynamic relationship between social change and, global environmental changes. And that seems to be maybe influenced by how you grew up and what you've witnessed. Can you kind of talk us through what that work is and how your life has influenced what you go through today?
Yeah. So academically, my first paper that I published was titled Democracy in Global Environmental Governance. So democratizing global environmental governance was a theme that I'm interested in because users on the ground, like you and I, consumers, are users of products and material that we extract from nature. And users on the ground have to have a key role in decision processes of environmental governance. So that was my interest because also what I experienced in the village, users who are water collectors, hunter-gatherers, agricultural farmers who are using land, forest, their decisions have immediate and also long-term impact on the forestry or river or a lake ecosystem. And so that was my interest, why I started out with that paper and presented with that, because the decision of individuals really is a key here. And then, of course, a collective decision of communities and groups all the way to nation state to the global level is something that we have to handle. So the problem here is how do we organize such a collective action that would give some sort of relief or solution to several climate change, environmental related problems that are intricately intertwined with our own decision, from like what to eat for breakfast, right? And what to wear or how much time we want to spend on internet, right? All of that. Right. And so that's a kind of natural outcome, maybe interest again of my research. And so that would be where I begin to look at social changes, which is changes that we make decision to move from consuming one product to another. Mm-hmm. It's a sort of societal decision or sometimes individual decision informed by societal education that we seek. And so that make me think, okay, ecological changes and social changes are simultaneously happening. Yeah. If we go back all the way to the abandoning hunter-gatherer lifestyle and beginning of Neolithic revolution with studying the sedentary agriculture system, right? And domestication of plants, animals, and fire, if you will. So it's from that point on, we have made a decision that is tied to our survival and our pleasure at the same time. At the same time, ecological survival and ecological dynamics are intertwined. So that, to me, was an exciting field of study. And that's how I get excited about teaching and research in this field.
Yeah, well, you're not alone because I'm like super curious. I think that's really cool from a practical standpoint. So like you talk about solutions to some of these issues. Are there things that your research has shown that works better in certain, is it, different political climates have different political need or social and, environmental needs? Have you seen that in what you look through?
Yes, two specific things. One is about, for instance, Fiji water bottle. Yeah. The class that I teach on global environmental politics, 200 level class, I assign a group of students to pick a product, either be iPhone or a shoe, Nike shoe, or a mango from Brazil that we get in a health food store here. And they can then, I ask them to trace from the raw material stage to their hand, and in some cases to the landfill where they would discard or put it in the recycling bin. Yeah. So one of the projects students did was Fiji water bottle. They decided to examine how Fiji water bottle, the water is available at the tap in the college campus. Drinking water is not that. You don't need to buy if you don't want to, but Fiji water bottle is one of the most expensive water that you can get. When you go to the airport, like a newsstand, it's right at your eye level when you look at the fridge in that newsstand, a bookstore. So I was paying attention, so I throw that as an idea. So student trace with my technique from the raw material note 1 to note N, which will be in their hand. So note 1 will be where raw material is. Note 2 will be where manufacturing stage happen. Note 3, transportation. Note 4, kind of distribution. Note 5 is retail store. And note N is all the final note is in their hand. And then I ask them to sort of each note what are the input and what are the cost and benefit, cost and profit, and they trace. And then which note made the most money or the most profit out of it. And then I also ask them to study what are the laws applied at each node, like environmental regulations. Where are the environmental regulations sort of imposed in the change, which node? And it turned out the majority of the environmental regulations are at the node where the least money is made, which will be like a raw material extraction stage, right? But not at the node where the most profits is made, which could be headquartered in Los Angeles, where Fiji Water is basically company is located and distributing, and then they're making the most money out of it in that change. So if you look at almost all the commodities, we find that legal mechanism that we apply are not really in line with economic and decision, environmental and political and economic decision intensity are existing there. So basically, we're working at the wrong tree. So laws are made at some trees, and then the other environmental issues are happening at the different places, right? So that was one interesting finding. I initially presented as a conference and then published in a working paper and so on. And I'm still working on that line. And I can continue on the other project, which is also exciting in Southeast Asia. I can continue on talking about it if you have time. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's dive into it. I think it's really cool what the work you're doing. And I don't know if Laura has a follow-up for Fiji at all, but let's dive into your next project.
Yeah, no, go for it.
So the other one, that interesting one I found was the reforestation due to outmigration of youth in the rural community and throughout Southeast Asia, including Thailand, Vietnam, and now Burma or Myanmar happening. This phenomenon is interesting in the sense that the younger generation of people who are introduced with cell phone and internet begin to be interested in more of urban lifestyle. So they're abandoning the rural lifestyle, and they are not interested in continuing to farm, like taking the land that their grandparents or their parents own. And therefore, they're looking for exit opportunities, so out-migration from the rural area. And suddenly, a boom in factory in Thailand, Malaysia, and other countries. And so factory jobs are available, and therefore there will be a labor market emerge here, and there will be some intermediary company that are moving people to work from Burma to Malaysia or South Korea or Thailand or Vietnam and things like that. So what happened to the rural area where youth are living is you are left with grandparents and young kids. And so the area that they used to farm, like a hilly area or valley area or mountain agriculture that are harder to do than flat land next to the river basin, those areas begin to pop up like a reforestation. So forests are emerging in those areas. And byproduct of this outmigration is that reforestation and carbon sequestration definitely will be increasing in it. So in some sense here, urbanization might be a type of solution that we might be able to imagine if we structure urban system more sustainable way or with sustainable urban design system. And because we reduce a lot of transportation costs for the distribution of food and commodities through the market, when you have this dense urban area, well-structured urban area.
Mm-hmm.
But then that is finding in Southeast Asia. But then I think about here in the context of highly developed society like United States. And once you left the villages and you become white-collar workers, like the lawyers and corporate, workers in New York and Washington, D.C., when you get rich, you then begin to think about second home in northern Minnesota for a cabin or upstate New York for a cabin. So then that transportation distribution that I was thinking might not really be also helpful if we own urban resident and at the same time own a cabin in rural area. And so it's an interesting phenomenon that I found. So I published a short paper, hypothesis paper in 2018 in Europe on that note, and which was unexpected data. When I was looking at the data from 1964 to 2018, I found the more urbanized the country you are, your carbon emission got reduced due to the urbanization. And so that really, Luxembourg showed up in my data set. Whoa, this is interesting. So more urbanized you are, you're more sustainable in sense of emission level. But the other question as a political scientist that I kept thinking about it is we're creating basically like urban area becoming like a beehive model. Everybody is fed well, but your political freedom might be restricted when you are living in an urban system. But it's up for the debate because urban system may also provide more opportunity for social gathering like theaters and museums and parks and whatnot. So, and this is a really interesting area that cut across urban studies, urban design, political science, and question of modern freedom in urban scene, if you will.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I'm pretty sure Laura can see my gears turning because this is really cool to me. And so, okay, there's all these dynamics going on. I love the idea that when you become more urban, you get more rural areas turning back into forests. That's really, really unique. Is there also a dynamic with agriculture as well? So is there less output now because fewer people are doing it? Is there a concern that at some point that's going to be a really big challenge that we have to address? Or is it one of those things that kind of works out in different ways?
Less output in terms of organic food.
Okay.
But industry agriculture enter that need, right? Food production. And therefore, you lose this quality of food because industrial agriculture is producing tomato that is no longer like organic tomato.
Right. Okay. Right.
So that's really interesting phenomena.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if industrial agriculture can solve food shortage problem with less land, pure land, less amount of land that we may need, that might be a sustainable future where more reforestation and more forests can be kept. But I doubt that would be the case too, because looking at some of the early study in 2000 study I did in Indiana, Monroe County, Indiana, and the phenomena of reforestation in Indiana from early 1900 to 2000. I looked at the data and we wrote and published a paper together, 5 of us actually, as an agent-based modeling paper. In that research I did, I found the reforestation in Indiana was due to federal government forest program. I think it was if you own more than 10 acres, you can sign into the program and you pay like a tax like $1 for an acre because you keep the land for conservation purposes, right? And so that kind of government subsidized program combined with citizens' livelihood changes because rural Indiana or rural Hoosiers at that time were moving to Washington, D.C. for white-collar job. They no longer want to work out in the farm in Midwest. And now they get degree from Harvard, Yale law schools and begin this white-collar young people. And then they also don't want to sell their grandparents' land. Right. They want to keep in the family. If you own more than 10 acres, then a good program, federal government program came up. So they basically donated, quote unquote, or sign into that program and paid less tax and keep your land, and then the forest be growing. And so that was one of the phenomena that we found in Indiana. So if multiple entities begin to address such kind of problems creatively, there is a solution, I would say.
Wow.
I know, I'm grinning. I can't help it.
So much incredible research. So you do all of this research and have amazing discoveries and insights. You're also involved in a bunch of different committees. So I'm not even going to try to list them all. You want to talk about a few of them and some of the projects you're working on?
In terms of environmental area or
environmental or maybe even just some of the social ones and things that you're doing back in Burma.
So my interest in democracy and the future of democracy, the future of agency of individual and freedom of individual.
Yes.
That is my interest. I became United States citizen in 2013. And then since then, I was able to go back to Burma and at least once a year or sometimes twice. And every summer, I would do my field research in Burma at the national park and agricultural farm, and where I grew up and things like that, about environmental and food system sort of related issues. That was really fun to do from 2013 to 2021. In February 21, military coup happened in Myanmar. And now all the freedom and democracy were basically threatened. And the coup in Myanmar, 3 weeks before, my adopted home, the United States, faced January 6th insurrection at the capital.
Right.
And when that happened, it basically recalled my memory of 1988 student movement in Burma that I participated as a high school student. That was a movement to overthrow one-party socialist authoritarian system. So I participated in that. Now I landed in the United States as a refugee, became citizen. I voted in that election, and my election was my vote on January 6, 2020 was almost threatened. Yes. And so that really was a reminder of the importance of democracy, importance of freedom, importance of this individual agency of all of us. And so I was quite alarmed by January 6th insurrection. And as I was thinking about it, digesting it, the coup in Myanmar happened on February 1st, 2021. So that led me to, once the coup happened, I got email from some of my colleagues and students who went to Burma with me in those summer trips and field research trip I did from 2013 to 2020. And they all asked me, what could we do? So I basically called for a Zoom meeting like this, and we discussed what can we do. And then we decided to support government workers in Myanmar who are walking out of their offices to boycott military coup. Because as you work out of your office, you lose your paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. And so we need to support this movement. And so I and my colleagues established this 501c3 group to raise funds and to support this civil disobedience movement in Myanmar, to support these workers or government workers who are boycotting the coup. And so we started fundraising by this Mutual Aid Myanmar. So mutualaidmyanmar.org is the organization that we co-founded. And since then, we have raised about $2 million in about 29 months.
Wow.
From the individual donors to support this democracy movement in Myanmar. And so that's one side voluntary job that I do.
Yeah.
In addition important. It's nice.
Yeah.
How do you raise that much funding? That's got to be really time-consuming, challenging.
It was surprising to me how generous and also dedicated these global citizens are. My personal goal when we had that Zoom meeting was, if we can raise $1 from each democratic citizen in the world, especially Europe, North America, we would be able to sustain the movement in Myanmar for at least 1 year to support these, So if that would be about, I calculate about 300 million is what we needed to support the civil disobedience movement. If everyone in Myanmar quit the job, but we could only support so far 20,000 CDM participants and so on. So the money that donated are individuals, family foundation, also corporation also have a matching program like Google and Apple and Slack Foundation. In fact, Slack is one of the early active company that would match their employees' donation to the Mutual Aid Myanmar, like 1-to-1 ratio. So that kind of donation, I think several family foundation also donated. And many individuals, including like my colleagues who are individual professor, would write 2,000 check, 1,000, 2,000 like that. And so that's how we raise the money, and it stay going. But the movement in Myanmar is kind of, now it's almost nearly 3 years, is having harder time to continue their stand in walking out of their offices and losing job and everything. So we're still thinking about them and trying to help them out as much as we could.
Yeah. How can people who are interested in supporting democracy in this effort get involved?
You can donate in mutualaidmyanmar.org or also pay attention. And also the global citizen or global community is well aware of the crisis in Ukraine, in Russia's invasion in Ukraine. Ukrainian struggle for freedom and Burmese struggle for freedom are similar, but at the same time totally different. Ukraine is a sovereign nation being invaded by Russia, the bigger sovereign. It's sort of classic international relation problem where the bigger nation would do whatever they wish to do or they want to do, and the weaker have to suffer whatever they need to suffer or they need to take on. But in the case of Burma or Myanmar, it's a sovereign authority itself within domestic sovereign authority itself, or rather the group that captured that sovereign authority is sort of killing citizens, civilians, burning down homes, and bombing the villages, and just like in Syria style, like a scorched earth campaign right now going on. So the domestic sovereign authority is basically abusing sovereign responsibility that is defined in international law. And that is what the difference is here. And so in that sense, the other is if we compare democratic outcome based on the percentage of voters and votes in November 2nd, 2020 US election and November 8, 2020 Myanmar election, which is the election that the coup nullified, the election in Myanmar is far more democratic than the one that President Biden and Vice President Harris are now holding offices. So if you think it hypothetically, you are a US citizen, and I am, if January 6th insurrection was a successful event, and let's say that Biden and Harris are both in prison, and almost all congressmen and women are arrested if they disagree with January 6th insurrectionist leaders, and let's say they are arrested, they're tortured, some of them are murdered in prison, and a few of them left for Canada and Mexico. What the US citizens do, what would you do, is a question that's hypothetical question I could pose for United States and in the United States. But in Burma, this is not a hypothetical question. This is the actual life they're facing. So they are taking up arms. The youth in Burma, Generation Z, is taking up arms and now trying to engage with the military arm to arm. So it's a civil war of some scale is increasing since the coup. So that is a situation, the fate of democracy.
Wow. I mean,
I think that's incredible. Probably the most powerful question anyone's asked us on this show.
Yeah. That is...
I think myself and a lot of Americans don't want to think about what if that would happen. So we don't think about it.
Yeah.
I think maybe we should, right? The political science
that's a good question.
Is just waiting for us to stop talking.
So think of Generation Z, Gen Z, which is leading the movement in Burma. Your show is on environmental related issue. Yeah. I mean, the democracy is a secondary to the existential threat that we're facing climate change issue, right? If we don't address the climate change issue and the loss of the diversity of ecosystem issue, we can talk about any discipline that we're studying, we're teaching, right? that climate change issue. So Gen Z is facing this both two fronts. One is a threat to their autonomy, agency, freedom of individuals, which coming from the rise of autocracy around the world, populism, all of that. And that issue and the climate change, which is a threat to their future, the future of everyone, basically, the planet. And so I think Gen Zs are not only smart, but also dedicated in Burma, at least in the context of revolution in Burma right now. Yeah. And their concern is both the future of climate, the planet, and the future of freedom, both. And I mean, if you think of young people who had to flee Hong Kong right after China took over, and what happened in Hong Kong, as you watch and saw in the media, right? And so people in the United States, young people in the United States have never faced such kind of imminent question or predicate event yet. But January 6th was very close. Yeah. And I know some of my students cried in my classes when Mr. Trump was elected. They felt quite emotional about that election. And so that's all I could say. So I could probably imagine what they would do if the thing like in Burma happened, actually happened. But January 6th happened, but it was an unsuccessful event. Right now, we are basically deconstructing that event systematically and institutionally. So that is a good news. Democracy, if we do it right and we allow it, all elements of society play out right, with less violence and maybe hopefully with no violence at all. That would be that would be great. But this is the United States as a whole is a great experiment for freedom of humanity in many ways. This country was established by people, with people from all over the world, right?
Yeah.
It's a great experiment in a sense compared to other countries where indigenous communities started their nation state and, comfortably moving along the line with history but disrupted by colonial expansion of different powers. United States kind of tried to avoid it, all of which, and start as a new nation for everyone, right?
Yeah.
And this experiment is fantastic. As a social scientist and political scientist, and specific, this is exciting and hopeful too for the humanity to move forward with this institutional setting, the setting that is now playing out in investigating that January 6th insurrection and what Mr. Trump and how he participated or not participated in this event.
Yeah, man, this is so crazy. I hadn't even considered how that would be discussed or taught for some reason. I'm been out of school for a very long time, but now I want to go back just so I can talk about it. I think that's absolutely fascinating. And it's absolutely worth discussing for the reasons you brought up. The line between what happened in Burma and here isn't as thick as we think. And that's a really powerful message. So, wow.
For sure. Well, thank you for that. Anybody listening, write that question down, have some food for thought there. But let's lighten things up a little bit.
We're getting a beer when we're in Minnesota. That's what I'm hearing.
All right. Yeah.
What's your favorite? What have you brewed so far? Or how long have you been doing it?
Oh, I started brewing in 2016, I think, winter around. And so I like all kinds of beer. What I have now on tap is IPA, and I have bread IPA, the sour IPA, brown ale, American brown ale, and then Belgium, and then I also brew banana bread because I had 3 rotten bananas. I'm sorry?
I love banana bread beer.
Oh yeah, it was really good. So banana bread because I had 3 rotten banana in the kitchen sitting. I love the aroma of that rotten banana,
Yeah.
But I want to capture that aroma into my beer, so I decided to put in a beer making process.
Nice.
That's funny. Did it come out okay? Did you like it, or is it?
Yeah. Everybody in my club loved it. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So the club, you guys all get together and bring your stuff to taste around and get feedback.
Yeah, monthly, every second Wednesday of the month, we bring our brew, and then we critique. Sometimes we get a little nerdy because they have the agriculture, 2 or 3 agriculture scientists. With PhD,
Right.
We can't stop,
Yeah, of course.
It's fascinating to listen to their, nitty-gritty detail as a science of yeast, and it's really interesting, hops and so on. Do you brew too? Any of you?
I mean,
I don't, but I do know I have several friends and they're all environmental scientists.
my brother does, well, he did, especially over COVID. I mean, so, and my uncle is really into it, like really, really into it too.
Yeah.
And he was a park ranger for, decades. So he's, of course, still in the environmental field and doing that as well. Very cerebral about it too. He'll talk to you for days about, I use this kind of grain and I roasted it in the sun for so many hours or whatever it is. And, you're like, yep, Uncle Mark. Yeah. So, cool. No, but it's really great. I love it. And, it's like happy accidents. I remember there was a Glacier Brewing in Alaska. I went there and they had a blonde stout, which I'd never had before, which was really good. And they had like a raspberry beer, which I would never in my life order. And they were like, we have both of those, but you can also order both of them together, like poured in together. And that was one of the best beers I've ever had because it just totally blew my mind on expectations. And the reason they even did it is because somebody thought it would be a really funny joke. So they had a birthday party, and someone poured them together, and they were like, here's the raspberry drink or whatever. And everyone was like, wow, this is amazing.
Wow.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
That's such kind of drink. Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah. So like I say, if you start pranking your club, maybe you'll come up with a new beer.
Yeah. We can blend beer. Certainly we do blend sometime.
Interesting.
I like the banana bread with the chocolate stout.
Yeah, banana bread. I put chocolate malt too. Yes.
Yeah. Oh wow.
It was really good. And the only thing I didn't put was cinnamon. A little bit of cinnamon.
I'm good. Getting thirsty now. My goodness.
All right. Well,
it's time for you there.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, it's 4 o'clock.
Before we all still go drinking for Friday. It is time for Field Notes. It's the part of the show where we talk to our guests about their memorable moments doing work in the field. We can all connect on having some interesting moments doing stuff in the field, regardless of the situation. And we encourage you listeners to share your stories using the hashtag Field Notes. And so, Tun, you have been in many parts of the world and doing really cool things. So how about any memorable things you want to share with us?
Yeah, one was one I was doing research and living with the fishing community in northeast Thailand, the region known as Isan region, which is also where most of great Thai dishes are born. Like lab, chicken lab, or sum tam that you like to eat at the Thai restaurant and so on. And so it's a culturally rich region. People are very creative, innovative with their own cultural activities and daily activities. So I was doing research in 2000 in that site. It's called Pakmun Dam, Pakmun, Pakmun Dam. So I was studying the dam, and it's a one and only dam in Southeast Asia, which has a sluice gate, which can be open or closed depending on the water volume in the river or reservoir to adjust the flood movement of the water. And then they installed, because the fishing community were initially against it, because fish migration would be wiped out. Yeah. And so my interest was whether local community, again, users of the resources were incorporated into decision-making process of that dam building project. And the World Bank funded 10% of it, and then remaining funded by Thai state. So I went to that community, lived with them, and just basically observed what they were doing. And the solution from the state and the World Bank for the fishermen's protest was to what they call it install fish ladder. And when the dam is in operation, fish can pass through the ladder to the upstream, and therefore the fish migration would not be disrupted. And so my practical question that I wanted to know was whether that fish ladder worked, actually, as it was designed by engineers who studied textbook on engineering and how to design fish ladders. And they brought from that integration from the Western University, most likely, and brought back to Thailand. And they came up with this fish ladder. So I went to the site, and I have a few curious villagers following me as I was following me. So because also that access to that ladder was prohibited by Thai authority, but I got permit to go into that. So there were some curious villager who never seen the fish ladder before, and came with me. So I went to this dam site, and I was at the base of the fish ladder, and I walked up to the ladder. It's like canal, which has a zigzagging pattern of the ladder, like water is contained within that little canal on the side of the dam. So I walked up in the midway. I was almost like tired from walking up to that thing. And then some of the villagers were also following me. Yeah. And so then I came down at the base, and I curiously asked them, have you ever seen fish, swimming through this and going into the reservoir site, upstream site? They said, no, one young man answered. And then there was one woman who said to me this: if you are pregnant about 9 months, and you started climbing from the base of that ladder that you started out, and do you think you'll be able to reach to the top? And that was her answer to my question of seeing fish.
Right.
It turned out my reading about these fish migration is usually fish begin to migrate, especially fish with eggs in their belly, looking for spawning ground where quiet rapids or cave or a small pond that would be quiet where they can lay their eggs, and then they will commute back to the river, and their offspring will be, growing in those little cave area and so on. So this woman, somebody who may have had her own pregnancy, and considering the pregnant fish with eggs will have to climb this river ladder up all the way to the reservoir. I thought that was the best answer I ever had in my field note, right? Here, this woman never been to school, like beyond her village school, and was able to answer the graduate student who had PhD dissertation.
Right.
I thought it took me several days to really appreciate. Until now, I just appreciate how the wisdom of this local people who own what we will call it tacit knowledge that is embedded with their experience, their life, their doing, their experiencing. That knowledge, we as a scientist can only observe and capture and sort of report back to our community. There, I think about the knowledge that somebody intrinsically owns through life experiences and the knowledge we gain from books and classroom lectures and things like that.
Right.
But we also worship, if you will, policymaker kind of take these observers' knowledge as a legitimate authority in decision-making process. But the women's knowledge that her answer to me is illegitimate knowledge because it was never peer-reviewed, never reported in published format. I could only describe that in a story, in my writing. Her knowledge wasn't respected in the whole process of dam building in that dam project in Thailand. And so I was thinking, here is a problem of disregarding local users' life experiences and knowledges. Indigenous knowledge is one here in the United States as well. And so that became a kind of question we need to pay attention to. So that to me was a story that worth sharing. And I keep thinking about it, and I will keep thinking about it as well as I teach this reading books and peer review and regurgitating those to my students versus what if I go and do it and then gain my own sort of understanding and share with it, right? And so that kind of tacit knowledge, just to expand further to what that tacit knowledge, the power of that tacit knowledge is, I could never write or transmit accurately the birthing experience of a woman. Even if I have a quantum computer or AI generated software measure brain move level, thinking, emotional reaction to the birthing experience, and sweat level, and joint movement and pain. I have that machine to measure, right? And I can immediately kind of record those and issue these flashy graph and show that this is how the brain movement and this is how the muscle movement and joint movement, all of that, and show this is what the birthing look like. If I write it, I must be joking, right? So that level of text and knowledge, man can never really explain. No. Yet we respect that man's knowledge, if you will, a source of decision-making authority. And that, to me, is a problematic one, especially for environmental governance and all kinds of environmental management.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. I totally agree. Oh, it's a great story.
Yeah, it is. And I'd love to hear so many more stories, but we're running out of time. Is there anything else you would like to talk about that we didn't get to mention or didn't get to today?
I think you did fantastic. Thanks for asking those questions.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here. If people are interested in talking to you more about your projects or even some of the volunteer work and social work that you're doing, where can they get in touch with you?
You can share my email in your podcast. Also, my profile link is given to you, so you could share that. But if you check Carleton College and type in my name, you'll find me as well in the present. I have Facebook, I have Twitter, and also my profile is there too.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope we'll get to chat with you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
And that's our show. Thank you, Tun, for joining us today. Please be sure to check us out each and every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. See you, everybody.
Bye.